Yeah, amazing. So, hey everyone. Today we have two of the founders of Arcade with us. Amazing to have you guys. So, I'm sure many of the people that are active in the Kadena ecosystem are familiar with the project, and so we're going to dive a lot deeper into it today. And yeah, with that, I would enter with a first question. So, can you tell us a little bit about your personal background and what got you into crypto in the first place?
Yeah, I can start that off. So, personally, I come from a technological background, mainly mathematics and computer science, but I pivoted into more of the data intensive side of things once I graduated. And I got into crypto from just hearing about it in news cycles. I'm always scrolling social media, reading new articles. And then I reconnected with Norizi, and he was mainly investing in crypto at the time rather than building while he was working on his own software engineering and the skill set there. And he kind of lit the flame, so to say, with me, and we began diving into really different projects, mainly in the Luna ecosystem, ETH as well, and Solana. I'm actually from San Diego, and Solana Beach, which is where Solana got their name, is not even 5 minutes from me. And the founders are from Qualcomm, and I have like a direct connection to Qualcomm through family. So that really got me interested in that side of things as well. So just doing my research on it, trying to understand like use cases, utility, past just investing in these tokens, because just investing, like you're putting your money in fairy dust. You don't really know what you're putting your money into, right? And I like to be more pragmatic and more stern with my approach. So when I began to read about, NFTs at the time, the potential use cases, as well as like how you can, scale a business in the world of Web3. And then what really got me extremely interested was like the data side of things on the blockchain, querying the blockchain as well. We began to explore different ways to, begin building our own project. At the time, Narizu was working on a project in Luna as a product manager, and it was really successful. And he took those skills that he learned in his time with them and came to me, and he proposed the idea to build the Cadenables. And we at the time had a Nintendo 64 in our living room. We were playing like Super Mario every night, playing Zelda. We were watching like classic 90s shows. So this elicits good feelings, right? This nostalgia like brings back simpler times for us at least. So let's center our project around that, because we know a lot of people can really connect with that. So that's kind of where we started off the journey. Then I'll let Patrick take the reins from here and how he got into crypto in the world of Web3. But that's my experience so far, and I'm loving every second of it. There are the hills and the valleys, but the hills are definitely more fun than the valleys, so to say. But I love every second.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm Patrick. I'm also one of the co-founders of Arcade. I got into the world of tech through my previous experience. I worked at a startup that we had a successful exit round in 2016. I was a part of a founding team in 2017 to 2019 on another project that had a very successful funding round and exit. And these two guys actually got me into crypto. I've always been kind of like a Bitcoin casual buyer. I have a Trezor wallet as well as a Ledger, and I used to just buy random bits of Bitcoin, but that was my only experience with crypto. So I don't know if Alaf had told you guys, but me, Norris, and Alaf all grew up together here in California. And I was always very skeptical of building in crypto at the time. So it took a while for them to convince me very early on. I always had an interest to it because I grew up gaming. So I knew about Bitcoin and all that in the early 2010s. But as time kind of progressed and went on, I started seeing more and more use cases. And one of my favorite things that Kadi will, he'll laugh at me for saying this, is when I did my research and I realized that Ethereum was built from from World of Warcraft, that made me really realize that there was an actual use case here, and it made me better understand it. So when I approached it from the point of view of being a gamer, playing games growing up, and then the tech side of things, it all made sense. So it took Cody and Norris, I want to say, probably like 2 months of just indirect meetings of, hey, let's do this, let's do that, to really get me to fully understand, because I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of attachments to the fiat and physical world, and it was hard for me to like really indulge into just being completely crypto based. But once I did, I was like, okay, this makes sense. I understand this. So the first few months of everything, I was in the background of things. I was in all the meetings. I was helping us have all the discussions, but I didn't want to hop on calls right away because I was still learning a lot myself. But I want to say around May is when it all fully clicked. I was able to like hop on calls. I was able to understand the tech. I was reading white papers. I was doing all my documentation. So that was my introduction kind of into the world of Web3, was through these two guys. I've always been in tech probably for about 6 to 7 years now. And then growing up playing games on tons of forums, I learned how to code ultimately through Counter-Strike 1.6 and Diablo 2. I used to make hacks for those games. So I was on the MyGot forums, Blizz hackers, and things like that. But ultimately, man, like what really drove me into Web3 has been these two, and it's been a blast thus far. And I'm excited to keep building, especially in this downtime.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks for that introduction. And it looks like Arne just dropped. All right. So why don't you guys walk us through what brought you to Kadena and what came first, the gaming aspect or the NFT aspect? And when you're elaborating on your NFT projects, tell us about all your collections and maybe also jump into the Looney Balls.
Right. So what brought us into Kadena? A lot of the Luna community at the time was kind of pointing towards Kadena and referencing Kadena. So me and Norizia at the time just threw some money into it, of course, throw money into it first and then do your research later, as most crypto people do.
Not
And then
financial advice.
not financial. As we began to actually like study what Kadena was after, it reached its peak of like $26. We learned about the founding team, and that really spoke a lot to how strong their core team was. And that's one of like the biggest green flags for us personally when it comes to the world of crypto, because there's a lot of teams out there that just aren't doxxed, or don't come from backgrounds that really relate to what they're building, so that the confidence in them isn't there. There's not much conviction in what they're building. But with Kadena, you have Stuart Haber, you have Pope Joy, you have Will, and they all come from backgrounds in the JP Morgan, SEC, and they're advisors with some of like the biggest blockchain tech in the world, right? And then you start diving into like what they want to do with Pact and what they want to do with Kadena and its shardable chains. You start to understand like, okay, there's something tangible here. There's something of value here. So we want to build on it, right? And another aspect that kind of magnetated us towards it was the theme of Kadena was very old school, and that's what we wanted to build, like an old school, NFT project / gaming project that fed on nostalgia. And you have projects like CADX incorporated like a Game Boy Advance on there. A lot of the Kadena color schemes were very like 90s style. So we just felt like it was very, very seamless, and it was very, very obvious choice for us. And we did start off as the Kadenables. So to just answer your question about what came first, the NFTs themselves came first in a literal sense, but
It was, yeah.
it was always our idea and our plan to expand into the gaming realm. And that's why we introduced the arcade to earn a whitelist spot for our 80s Genesis Mint. And we introduced the Kadena Olympic Games. And we had so many references to classic games and classic characters like Super Mario and Luigi and Sonic integrated into our NFTs. So there you can't have one without the other when it comes to us. The gaming side builds off of the NFTs, and the NFTs really thrive off of the gaming. And then it just naturally progressed to become the arcade, because we understand that the NFTs play a large part in the arcade, but the arcade itself is the larger vision that we want to build. And to touch on the Looney Bowls. I love the Looney Bowls are my favorite NFT, so I'm glad you brought it up. So the Looney Bowls idea came from just rewarding our IDO participants, and we wanted to do it in like an extremely unique way with art that we've never seen across any ecosystem. And we thought, what better way to do it than to kind of pay homage to like the classic cartoons from the 30s. It's called Rubber Hose cartoons. So like, you know, the classic Disneys and the Popeyes and all of those. So that's where the Looney Bowls design inspiration came from. And shout out to our artist Carrie. She did an amazing job with that.
Amazing job.
And
Shout out to Carrie for sure.
yeah, so everyone that invested 50 KDA in the idea was airdropped the Looney Bowl for free, and now they're tradable on the marketplace if anyone wants to go snag one. Not financial advice, obviously.
All right, yeah. Pretty cool. And honestly, when I first saw the Looney Bowls, I was thinking, why didn't we come up with that? They're looking pretty sick, to be fair. But you've mentioned that you've chosen the Kadena ecosystem for obvious reasons. But was there any point in time where you doubted the choice and also the success of the Kadena ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean,
Great question,
when
yeah.
you're building, you always have your doubts, right? You always have moments of reflection where you need to take a step back and, you know, like understand not your roadmap for the long term, but like what you want to do in the short term and if it's possible. And Kadena is very unique in the fact that Pact is a brand new language. There aren't many developers out there building on Pact. The documentation is a bit scarce at the moment. So Norizi isn't on the call. He's our dev. There were nights where he was ripping his hair out, you know, trying to figure out bugs and error handling and trying to determine if what we were trying to do is possible. And sometimes we just have to take a step back and get some fresh eyes on it. And that's where, you know, me and Patrick would kind of rubber duck with him because we don't necessarily have Pact experience, but we have dev experience. So we can help him, you know, analyze and determine new solutions to problems that he does run into with, you know, developing the smart contracts. So yeah, we had moments of doubt where we thought, you know, maybe what we're building isn't possible on Kadena, but sometimes you have to have those moments. You have to question yourself in order to really, really like come out stronger on the other side. And I think we did, you know, before the 80s mint, we were in Austin at the Central meeting with some of the Kadena core team and some of the CADX team. And I'll never forget Norris like waved Nicholas, the CEO of CADX, to the side. He's like, I keep running into this bug with CADX. It keeps disconnecting from my site. Like, I don't know what to do. And Nicholas is like, bro, like, you know, here's my number, text me, like, we'll fix it, you know. And our mint was like the next day.
Right. This is right in front of the secret event, like the secret stand, right?
Right in front of it. So it's just, we had so many moments where like at the buzzer beater, Michael Jordan in '94, you know, over the Utah Jazz, just to reference the '90s, where we had to really, really like get a solution put together quickly. And we had those moments of doubts, man. We had moments of fear within our team where we thought it wasn't possible, but you know, it's awesome to be building with Patrick and Norris because they're both like brilliant minds and they both have different ways and different angles to look at things. And it's just so helpful to be building with two people like that. And it's really taken us to this point, you know. And I'm sure Patrick has his own say on things and his doubts and everything that he's learned in his experience with Kadena.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll backtrack just a little bit and just kind of touch on one thing with the gaming aspect, where very early on, at the time when we started the Kadena Bowls, we realized that everyone's in a Discord. People are probably in 20 Discords on Ethereum, 50 Discords on Kadena, another one on Polygon, another one here. We realized people were probably everywhere trying to get a whitelist because at this time, anyone could drop a JPEG art, make $100 million, and everyone was like, I'm trying to get on this craze. I want to get a free NFT. I want to get in the next Bored Ape, whatever. And we realized that very early on. So when we were the Kadena Bowls, we didn't want people to feel like they needed to grind in our Discord all day to be able to buy our NFT when the time came to mint. And that ultimately is going to lead me into the initial doubts and things like that. But we wanted to create a fresh take where we added arcade games into our website at the time. And in order to earn a whitelist spot, you had to earn, I think it was like 50 stars. And I have major issues with Norris for making stars so hard to earn. That's a whole other situation. If we want to talk about par values and things like that, speaking of the devil, there he is. Yeah, I have major issues with Norris due to the stars early on because it was so hard to obtain. I think you had to play for like, I don't even like 60 hours or something like that. But very early on, we wanted to create a fresh take that was very gaming centric that led us to this point now where it's like we trialed stars, we knew we could do it. We got the Discord bot down. So it was like you could level up in our Discord and we can pull all that data to ultimately assign whitelist through roles in our Discord server. And all of that stuff has kind of led us to where we are now, which is where kind of our initial doubts came with Pact because we heard about Marmalade. We all were on the Marmalade email list, right? But as months went by, we didn't hear anything. You begin to get a little discouraged about it. And that's when I feel like a lot of projects start to pack their bags and leave. And we even had the discussion like, we don't know when we'll be able to mint. We don't know when Marmalade's coming. We don't know this. We don't know that. So Norizi, Kitty, Squeegee, Gallinas, and all them, they all kind of have been in conversation for the last... Wow, that is crazy. That is crazy. What's up, man?
How's it going? I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so sorry I'm late. How are you guys doing?
All good. Welcome. Amazing that you're joining.
Yeah, thanks for having us. What I miss?
A lot. We'll touch on it in just a sec. I was just kind of we were just kind of talking about some doubts that we had with Kadena, and ultimately it was just the lack of documentation with Pact of launching. Like we didn't know when we could launch, so we were doing all this stuff in Discord, and this is about a year ago now. We were doing all this stuff in Discord, but we didn't know when we could launch. So listening to Blockchain Doug's office hours and things like that, where you can fork, like it's all on chain. It's all open source. You can fork it and kind of make your own solutions. Ultimately, that's kind of what we began to do. But really what I would have to say our initial doubt was just not having a solidified date on how we could launch. And that was probably one of the biggest moments where we were like, okay, let's take a step back. What brought us to Kadena anyways? Let's stick to that. Let's not worry about this. Let's just keep building our community. Let's keep engaging. Let's keep planning, which is what we did, and we're happy we're here. But I would say that the only initial doubt that I had at the time was trying to set a date because it was really hard for me to do my part of like structure, planning, and being, compliant in certain areas when we didn't have direct dates at the time. That's all past now. Like I said, this is like back in February 22, but that's probably one of my initial doubts at the time.
Yeah, super cool to hear like all the struggles from like behind the closed doors, and I think that's something that the community usually doesn't see, and everyone is just waiting for the launch to happen. But you guys definitely came out stronger on the other side. Yeah, maybe one of you guys can elaborate on what kind of games can we expect on the arcade. I've seen like a couple of games to come on the website that you cannot play yet. So what can the community expect and when?
I think Norizi can take the reins on this one.
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry I'm late once again, but appreciate you guys hosting the space. We just are Zencast, and we just did one similar yesterday, so these have been a lot of fun, and we got some more planned, especially as we're gearing up for the 90s Bulls. We want to share more of what's happening with Arcade. We've been a bit silent. I'm not sure what Elof and Patrick have touched on so far, but we've had a lot in the works, a lot under wraps that we're just slowly uncovering, and just lots of fun stuff just always happening behind the scenes. So we try our best to kind of slowly, iteratively share what we're working on to keep the excitement, but also, not keep people too much in the dark. So touching on the games specifically, we have these 4 games come that are arcade style games. They're going to be released similar to how Super Bowl has been released. So we're going to be releasing it to an exclusive group. To begin, the Superstar Bowl rank within Discord and OGs, and then we'll see what other holders that we will allow to play these games. But we're going to release them first. There's Hooper, there's King Cobra, there's Blue Blocks. So there's a lot of cool games coming out that are a bit nostalgic, but still have like a modern twist to them. And what's really cool about these games too is they're going to immediately be available on mobile as well. And we're going to start out where everyone, that has exclusive access will be allowed to play. However, we won't be releasing the star system until early next year. We'll be releasing where you can actually start earning stars and then go into our star station where you can exchange these stars for arcade. I'm not sure if Elof and Patrick had touched on the star station. Have you guys talked about that yet?
A little bit, but you can definitely provide some more detail.
You can elaborate on it, I think.
We'll rapid fire off each other.
Yeah, Patrick and Elof right now are working out all the numbers. I'm working on the API and being able to make that exchange. So basically, you're going to be able to earn these stars in those 4 games that I had just listed, and then of course in Super Bowl you've already seen those stars. And then we're also going to be able to earn stars through, if you guys have seen the new earn tab, I'm not sure if they touched on that, so apologies if I'm repeating anything, but on that earn tab, you see Kazora on there, you see Wizards Arena, we got a couple more games that we're also partnering with coming out, which is really cool. So we'll be allowing access to earn stars through outside games as well, not just the games that Arkade is building, but other games within the ecosystem too. So you can earn all these stars, and then you can go into our star station, which is currently in development, and you'll be able to exchange those stars for Arkade token. And then we'll touch on later a little bit about what we want to do as far as offering utility to Arkade, which is, really exciting as well, that I'm sure people are stoked to hear about. But that's it as far as the new games that are coming out. And I mean, I don't know how much I should share, but those aren't the only games coming out. I'll say that. There's a lot in the works at the moment. So lots of fun stuff.
You shared some alpha about the mobile gaming aspect too, so you don't have to be on your desktop to play.
Yeah.
And then integration, of course, of games within the Kadena ecosystem and other builders and developers in Kadena. We want to help them, bring visibility to their games and bring utility to their games as well. So if you're playing, just an example, Wizards Arena, which is an amazing game on Kadena, if you haven't checked it out, go check it out. And you be indirectly earning stars just by checking out our, challenge board, seeing what you need to do to meet the threshold, and going over to Wizards Arena and playing that game. And Norris can touch on, I think he already did touch on the whole API and how we'll be sharing it with those devs as well. So we highly encourage anyone out there, if they do have a game in mind that they want to build and want to bring to Kadena, reach out to us. We love hearing everyone's ideas, and everyone brings a fresh viewpoint to gaming because everyone's experience in gaming is different and it's unique. So it's really cool to hear what everyone's cup of tea is. So whether it's like an RPG, MMO RPG, tower defense style game, side scroller, people have their preferences, right? So we want everyone that has a unique preference to be able to earn in the arcade, whether it's in the arcade or not.
Yeah, super cool. Yeah, so I mean, gaming is obviously one part of what you guys are doing, and I think it's fair to say that you're one of the most productive teams in the ecosystem. And in another area where this is quite visible is on the marketplace side. And you've briefly touched upon a few things already, and we wanted to drill a little bit deeper. So a lot of the NFT projects around had chosen to launch on your platform, and I just wanted to ask, what it to launch a collection on your platform?
Yeah, great question, and thank you very much for that. We really appreciate it, and same to you guys. Like, we see what you guys do, and we're very appreciative and supportful of all of that. As far as it goes with launching on the arcade, so ultimately, not everyone that applies can launch with us. Those factors range from various things, but ultimately, what we look for in launching a project is how long you've been in the ecosystem for. What is your long-term vision? What is your short-term vision? What's the team's experience? Is the team willing to dox internally to us? It's through KYC. Is the art good? How long have they been building this project? And a few other things. We love to see if they're engaging on Twitter daily. We love to see what their marketing is. We want to see kind of, what is your turn? What do you want to do after this? Is your NFT project to bootstrap a larger vision? Do you want to become a game? Is it a DAO? Like, what's going on? So in order to kind of launch on the arcade, there's no one size fit all solution here. Like, it really varies, but we look for ultimately quality of art, quality of the team, and long-term vision. And even if you have those things, it still might not be a good fit. There's plenty of great projects out there that we haven't accepted to launch with us only because it seems forced. Like, as we're very gaming centric focused, we want it to make sense. So, if Norris comes to me wanting to launch the Kadena penguins or the Kadena cucumbers, if he wants to do that and open up a garden, it doesn't really make sense for us to launch this project because our focus is gaming. Now, if he said that he
good ideas, man. Kadena cucumbers.
Now, if he told me he wanted to do Kadena cucumbers, but he wanted to do like ninja chop style game with it, that's something we can work with. And if someone hears this and runs with that idea, apply to us. I'll take you. But ultimately, you know, these are just small things that we look for. It's like if Norris wanted to do like a garden with that, that's really hard for us. It feels very forced, right? But if he wants to do something with the game, it's easy for us to take this plot and story that he's been working on with the cucumbers and attach that into what we already have with Billy the Bull within the arcade. So launching a project with us isn't black and white. Like there's a lot of small areas that we look into. You know, we look into, is this project buying engagement? Is this project, you know, are they fulfilling their promises? Is this project, you know, on their spaces, are they respectful of the community? And, you know, these are things we look for. We as a team really look in depth on all these projects, and we like to give it about to about 2 weeks of kind of lead time in deciding if we're going to launch a project or not before we open up the conversation to kind of going forward with that. So if you apply on Monday, you're not going to get approved on Wednesday. And there are certain circumstances where they'll reach out and they'll be on a tight time crunch, so we'll rush a meeting and we'll do this and that. But for the most part, that is kind of the criteria when it comes to launching a project with us. And there's a few factors that we haven't really touched on. I can't say, unfortunately, but ultimately, I would say that is kind of like that covers about 75% of it.
Yeah, and just
and I'll add on to that. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think we're going to say the same thing, so you go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, to add on to that, I'll list what it would immediately disqualify you as an applicant to apply to launch on our arcade launchpad. It would be one, if you're just getting started and you're trying to launch in like 2 weeks, that's just not enough time to build up community, to build up marketing, to get your name out there, to engage, for people to know who you are. If you're just going on to, for example, like, you know, a freelancing site like Fiverr and just getting a bunch of art done and thinking that's enough and providing no utility, that you're going to be immediately disqualified as well. If you have a roadmap with too much utility as well, it goes the opposite way. If you have a huge roadmap with a bunch of utility that you're not even explaining how you're going to fulfill, have the resources to fulfill, you won't have the resources to fulfill, and nothing correlates with each other, nothing is, you know, it's kind of all over the place, that's going to disqualify you as well. Like Patrick has said, if you're buying engagement, if you have a lot of fake followers and likes and comments, that's going to most likely disqualify you as well. So just to be, you know, blunt for anyone who's applying and wondering why, you know, well, we get back to everyone, Patrick gets back to everyone, but wondering why you might be, you know,
and if you
rejected from arcade. Yeah, and if you're completely anon and no one knows who you are within the community and you're trying to just make a quick buck, it's pretty obvious these days, like, when that's the case. So don't even try.
I'll add to that, Doris. I'll say this too. There's another part of it where maybe you are within the community and, you know, you have a project and you're doing this, but if you have multiple Twitter accounts that, you know, you feed off of one another and you're shilling your product on another Twitter account that you both run, that's very easily readable as well. So that's something too that it's hard to identify, but certain times there are telltale signs where you can be like, this is kind of suspicious, you know? So these are just small things that we look into. We're on Twitter daily. We're on Telegram daily. We're in Discord. Like, we're very much in the ecosystem, paying attention to all the small and big things that happen. So just to kind of add on to that as well, like, these are just small things that, like, we really look into when we launch a project on our platform.
Yeah. I mean, my piece of advice for anyone building a project is I would personally not feel comfortable launching a project until I feel like my community could echo the vision of the project without me needing to do it. So with the 80s Bulls and with the Kadena Bulls, we were extremely comfortable with picking a random person from our community to hop on a Spaces call and give everyone the rundown of what the Kadena Bulls are, what our ethos is, what our pathos is. And if you feel like you aren't at that stage, I would continue to cultivate that community, because that community is what's going to take you the furthest. They're the one that's going to push you through, you know, as I mentioned earlier, the valleys. They're going to push you to the peaks, right? So just building that strong community, that strong foundation, and going from there is really the best path of success.
Yeah, and last thing too, I think the key here that we look for as both a launchpad and just collectors as well, that collectors look for, not just in the Kadena ecosystem and just NFTs across the board, it's momentum. right? Like I know a lot of great projects that might not have a large Twitter following. They might not have a very active Discord or Telegram, but they build momentum leading up to it in a strategic way where there is a lot of energy pouring into the community. A lot of people are being educated, they're being entertained, they're loving the art, they're seeing the vision with the utility. All that can happen very quickly, you know? It's kind of like that. If you guys have seen that image or that quote about like you're digging for gold and you're just 3 feet away, you might not feel like your community is really engaging that much. You might not sell, but once you get to that launch date and you're able to build that momentum up and people start buying, well, guess what? They're going to start posting on Twitter, right? They're going to start posting in the Discord, and then it's going to create some FOMO. It's going to get even more hype. So don't be too discouraged if you're not getting the following super quickly, right? I think people care more about depth than they just do about how, you know, how large a community is. So there's a lot of people, a lot of collectors who buy, and they might not even follow you on Twitter. They might not be in your Discord, but they see the engagement on Twitter leading up to mint or while it's minting, and they're going to want to mint more, right? So there's a lot of creative ways to market around that time. So once again, don't get discouraged if you don't have a large following. I mean, if you notice the lists that all three of us just gave, we didn't even mention like the size of your community or your audience. It is an important factor, but it's not one of the top factors. We care more about the depth of your community.
Yeah, and then just to close it out, if you do apply and just say the timing isn't right and you do get denied, again, don't feel discouraged. Like, go, whether you go to a different launch pad or marketplace, we are always here to offer advice, and our application isn't just like a one-time application where if you get denied you can never apply again. You can come back and apply again in the future, say something changes, or you build your community like Nora said, and you feel like your project has matured to the point where it's ready to launch on the Arkade.
Whenever I send a message that a project we decided not to approve a project at this time, I always tell the projects to reach back out within 30 days. And if you apply to us and we decline you at that time, you go into a list that we have where we're able to we still pay attention to you. We see if you're still engaging, you know, what are you going to do? We'll give you 30 days, come back in 30 days and we'll go from there. And I literally in the message put, if you feel like you want a longer explanation, please message me here or on my personal Twitter at PatrickDM, and I'll give you the reasons why I felt like you needed some more time before you can launch with us. So anytime that someone gets declined from us, we give them, it's not like Kadi said, it's not a you're done. Like you can apply within 30 days. Ultimately, it's once a month if we decide not to. And you can keep applying, and eventually you'll get there if you're serious. But there's plenty of great options out there, as Norizi and Kadi had mentioned. And if you don't launch with us or the timing's not right or whatever, that doesn't mean that we're enemies or anything like that. Like we're one big ecosystem. We can all work together. And that's what we do with a lot of projects behind closed doors as well.
Can you also share which of the projects that have launched, which one was the most successful from your standpoint? And this can be by any metric.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
They're all successful.
Not to pat ourselves on the back too much.
Maybe other than yours.
Not including us. No bias.
Yeah, our 80s bulls did pretty well.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to think about it. If you guys have an answer.
So I'll give a couple. Man, this is really hard. That's a great question. Thank you. I really love how the packed rats came about. C-Rob went crazy, and you guys might say it too. He buys everything. Your guys' art's insane. I'm sure he bought a ton of yours. C-Rob is everywhere in the ecosystem, and he goes crazy with it. So for us, we were like, let's reward him. I remember very early on when he was a mod in the Kadena Kongs, he used to post his art for the packed rats. So we reached out. We were like, yo, let's make this real. Very small, limited size. Like, let's just, just to kind of like show you that we appreciate all you do with the ecosystem and community. And it sold. I think that was the quickest sell we had. Metrics and everything aside, like even though the collection size was small, the time of which people were trying to buy before we saw that there was an error or bug with the initial first round. And he had enough attributes, I think, to do a collection up to like 6,000 or 7,000. So it was easy for us to make that right. But I think he sold out in like 2 or 3 minutes, was it, guys, of his collection, which I think was one of the more successful ones at least hosted. Second to that, I would probably have to say Oh man, this
Those are
is.
sellouts. The Skellies sold out as well. That's another
The
Uh,
Skellies.
I was gonna say, the Skellies and Pack Rats probably have been my two favorite of recent. But we love all the project. That's a really hard thing to like kind of go by.
Like the Sphinx are minting now. We think the Sphinx, along with you guys at ASC, have some of the best art
For
in the
sure,
community.
definitely. Nightbreakers too. Shout out to Nightbreakers. They have awesome art as well.
Yeah, not like there's so many projects out there that like even if you don't sell out, you know, you can see the vision, you can see the amount of time and effort they put into the art and building that project. Like the Sphinx were OGs, you know, they were around before us, you know, before most projects in Kadena. So them, they're
The,
some of my favorite. And this is
the
just me
Komodo's art
becoming
too.
biased. This isn't even about like success. It's just like an own personal bias at this point. And what like I prefer.
I like the
There's the
Komodo's art too.
Crocs. Like the Crocs art is insanely unique. Eight Lazy Apes had awesome art as well. I mean,
Yeah, there
Komodos
hasn't
was
really been a
unique.
project that I've been like, you know, I don't really like that art. It's like everyone has their unique twist to
Yeah, and they
to
all
it,
had
and
their
yeah,
own ways
it's
of
really
like
cool.
building community, and it's just all very unique angles to like how you can build a project. So it's been amazing to see.
You, you know what I love about the Pack Rats and the Skellies? Couple things is one, they're OGs, right? Like
Community. Yep.
everyone knows these community members from the very get, so they've offered value. There's so much trust with XI and with C Rob that you know people wanted to mint, and it minted out so quickly because of the founders, because of how much the founders truly care. So with the bug, two cases here, kind of our fault, right? With the bug that happened with Pack Rats, C-Rob at first he didn't want to like he didn't care that he didn't make it because the first 333 were all for free, and we're like, hey man, I'm so sorry, like I accidentally forgot to
To
put
be
the
clear,
coin
that was
transfer
a
things. Like
bug. Someone came out and said,
it
"Oh,
was,
this was
yeah,
just marketing." Like,
the
if we are
marketing
not that
scheme.
smart, we are not smart enough to come up with a marketing scheme like that. You're giving us way too much credit.
And C-Rob was like, you know, don't worry about it. Like, I don't care. Like, they're not doing it for the money, right? Like, they're doing it to give back to the community, to have fun with everything, to offer utility. He loved the Super Bowl game, or, you know, we're like, oh, let's add you as a villain character in the Super Bowl game. So that was really cool with C-Rob. And then I don't remember the exact details with XI. It wasn't a bug, but it was
I
another
remember
case where just
you
XI didn't
commented out
care.
a piece of code that like
Yeah.
just the free. There was the free mint round. I
Yeah,
don't remember
something
the
like
exact
that.
details, but yeah,
Maybe it was my fault
there
again.
was a hiccup with the free mint
Yeah.
round.
Right. And by the way, anyone who's coding in Pack, these coin transfer functions are sometimes a nightmare. So I got it down now for the most part. But, you know, there's a couple times where it would like skip over the function, and people would have that free mint or whatever. So anyway, yeah, again, XI, another example, like didn't care about making any money from this and really just wanted to do something cool for the community. So us, again, as a launchpad, and then collectors as buyers, like they can read that very easily. Like people's BS meters these days is higher than ever.
Yep.
Not just in the NFT space, not even just in like DeFi or crypto in general, but just like anything online these days. Like
100%.
people are very aware. So the best way to go about this is from the heart, is honest, is wanting to give value to a community and ecosystem that you actually care about. And if you fake that to any degree, you're gonna fall short.
Yeah, and we also have to say these guys are super active in any community, really, in the Kadena ecosystem, and also heavily invested, and not only with money but also with their time. And yeah, that's something very unique to those community members, and also like to the entire Kadena ecosystem. So maybe to wrap things up, how do you guys see the next couple of months investing wise, but also, yeah, economy wise? Do you think we will see a turnaround anytime soon in the crypto ecosystem? And if so, will that also be the case for the Kadena ecosystem?
I think we're in a macro bear market, and catalysts such as the collapse of FTX only expedite that. But within these macro bears, you do have the micro bull runs where you have relief rallies. Obviously, Bitcoin is the main indicator, and everything follows Bitcoin. And so we're going to have, whether it's a couple of months or a couple of weeks where all of these coins do rally and you see a pump. And during these pumps, you'll have an influx of new eyes on your ecosystem, on your project. So you just need to position yourself well for them and make sure, when these new eyes do come into the ecosystem, that they understand your project, they understand the vision, what you're building. There's still excitement. We love bear markets because it allows us to build and it allows us to take a step back and really be very critical of how we build and be very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Strategic in our planning.
Mm-hmm.
So we're building regardless of the market conditions. I'm sure people have heard that a bear market's a builder's market, right?
100%.
And in terms of Kadena, the tech is there, the founding team is still there. It's a strong core, and that's really what you need to get through a crypto winter. And we think Kadena has it, and they're well positioned themselves for the next bull run, in our opinion, not financial advice.
For sure. And I echo that. I think Kadena is in a very good position to make a strong comeback. The FTX collapse, people say it set crypto back 3 years, and to an extent, I understand where they come from. It's not every day that one of the biggest exchanges just collapses, and there's a lot of things that kind of play into that I think Kadena itself has really solved. When you look at their background, they're all very compliant, and if you've ever had to deal with compliance, that is a skill set that never leaves you. So I feel like they're well positioned. They're in New York City, which the state of New York and here in the US is probably the hardest state to get compliant in. So them being headquartered in New York City says enough. Their team's very strong. One of my favorite videos is with Will talking about, he goes on like a 20-minute rant with someone. I think he met up with them off Twitter because they had a disagreement, and they were like right next to each other, and they went down this rabbit hole of like just a conversation that's a little bit over my head, but I followed it. And that's one of my favorite videos, I think, of the Kadena team that I can think of in the last year. But I think Kadena is well positioned to make a comeback, not financial advice, of course. And I think crypto itself is not going to go anywhere. I think, if anything, there's just going to be new policies around teams. And if you take a look, I mentioned this yesterday. So if you hear this on another call or whatever, it might be a little repetitive. But if you look at what DGod/Utelist did with their recent project, they all begin doxing. And I feel like doxing is going to become a much more common practice in the NFT space because people are going to want to see who is behind the teams. I think we've all evolved past the point of FOMOing into certain projects. I won't say that, but I think we've all evolved enough to kind of see the BS and see the telltale signs of what red flags to look out for, and to kind of like put a face to a team and let's not let this happen again. So I think even though the FTX collapse was very harmful in the short term for maybe people's release dates, things that might have been building, certain ecosystems, I think that at the end of the day, things will make a comeback. It might not be right away. It might take a couple of years, but I think that it's gradually going to continue to increase. And with that being said, I think that this is a perfect time to build, and this is a perfect time for you to really, if you haven't doxed yet or you haven't really got the chance to know your community, I'm not saying you have to dox. This is just my personal point of view. I think this is the best time for you, for us builders, to really engage your communities and put a face and put an actual like personality behind your project, not just the PFP or whatever. Like, get to know your community, get to engage, and really start changing the stigma of Web3 or Web 2.5, if you want to call it. Like, let's change the stigma of, hey, I'm coming into this to lose money. Like, let's turn this into something positive. Let's actually focus on the tech, and let's still build with hype, but let's be a little more critical of the teams that come into the space now. And I think that's kind of the position that we're all in at the moment.
Yeah. And if I can add on to on a macro level, like, I mean, as these guys both said, I'm just echoing, is we are in a builder's market. It's obvious. I mean, companies have raised, some companies have raised hundreds of millions of dollars over the last couple of years, others, a bit less. But regardless, there are these funds to invest into building right now, right? If there aren't a lot of buyers, then they're not focusing so much on marketing and trying to get the product out there and get more users. Maybe to some degree, yes, but they're focusing on on optimizing their features, optimizing their, in the NFT space, their marketplaces, if it's a NFT project, making sure that everything is in line. So when the bull market does happen, everything's ready to go. So it's not a matter of course, not financial advice, but it's not a matter of if, but when, right? I mean, if you've been in crypto for a while, this has happened. Like, it's nothing new, right? I mean, yes, there was obviously giant collapse, X, Y, and Z happened over these last few months, or just over 2022 in general. Lots of crazy things have happened that do create a lot of FUD within crypto, but it's it's a mirror of just what's happening in the economy, right? So I think just as a experienced person within the market, that we're in a builder's market. It is what it is. So if you are a builder, put your head down. If you want to be a builder, go learn right now too. There's so many resources out there, especially within the Kadena space. There's lots of more resources coming out. I mean, shout out like Kadena.js, for example, the front end library now to be able to connect to the Kadena blockchain is making things a lot easier for developers. I know the Discord channel in Kadena is getting a lot easier to find like different. Let me give some context. Something that I did to help learn Pact. If I was to experience a bug in Pact, I would go into Discord and just paste my bug in there and find out, find the conversation around what was happening with that bug. Same thing you could do with Stack Overflow, right? So there's more and more developers on Kadena now, so you can get a lot of resources there. Or if you just want to learn coding in general, like there's tons of resources and now time for you to just put your head down and learn that. So when there is a new, once again, bull market, then you'll be ready, whether you're a builder, an investor, a collector, whatever it is. Now's the time. Take advantage of it. Might be a little controversial. People might be mad, but like I get excited for times like this. I know it's rough.
For sure.
Painful.
For sure.
It is very painful, but you can look at it, if you decide to look at it in a way where it's like, okay, it's a time to invest in yourself. I think it becomes a lot more exciting and easier to bear that pain. That makes sense.
And just to piggyback, now this is where we start having fun. We just start rapid firing. I just want to say too, never determine a team's like success or what they're capable of off of a funding round. So if a team raised $10 million, $20 million, $5 million, whatever, that doesn't make them any better than a team that's running on a $5,000 bootstrap. It comes down to talent. It comes down to what your actual vision is. It comes to solving an issue efficiently and with utility. And it's not about, I always tell these guys, lead with vision, not with numbers. And that's really what has got us to this point, is just being very focused on the actual vision of what we're building, not getting so caught up in a funding round or what X, Y, and Z is doing. It's really just focusing in and honing in on our product, because I've been in tech a while, a team's funding round is never a reflection of their initial long-term success. So even if you're building this right now with $200, $2,000, or $200,000, whatever, just keep going. There's plenty of people out there that have started with less than you that have gone very far, and more with you that have failed. So just like, if you're watching this and you find yourself kind of in a position where you're like, I want to get started, or I don't know where to get started, just start, and everything else will fall into place if you're genuine and the community is receptive of that. Because everyone's BS meter is high. And as I said, it's not a reflection. If you have a good idea, build it, and then good things will come. And that's really all we have to say on that.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Those are amazing words to end the conversation. And I think you guys are building an amazing project, and everyone in the community is seeing that. And it's always great to hear some reassurance from a community perspective, I would say, that you guys are seeing like a great future for the Kadena ecosystem and crypto in general. And yeah, from my side, I think there are no questions left. Arne, do you have any, or should we wrap it up here?
No, let's wrap it up. Amazing to see you guys. And yeah, thanks for the great conversation. Really good insights.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you guys for
hosting.
Likewise, guys. Appreciate it.
Of course, bro. We started having fun at the end, and then now we're going to wrap it up. But it's been a blast so far. We had no connection issues. We were like, let's do it. But it's been a blast, man. Thank you guys for hosting this. We'll have to do it again soon.